All right, one half of Sekeres and Price on a big day for the Vancouver Canucks. A couple of days ago, they welcome back Thatcher Demko. Tonight, they welcome back JT Miller, and he ain't saying nothing about nothing. Here to comment on everything Vancouver is a great Matt Sekeres. Matt, how are you today? Thanks for being aboard.
I'm fantastic, Jeff. Thanks for having me on the program, and congratulations on the new show.
Thanks, my man. I think we have a frozen shot of you right now. We'll see if we can fix that. But nonetheless, we have the audio, and that's great. So, off the top of the show, I was telling a story about 2008 Beijing, working at CBC, working at the Olympics, and leaving the IBC after filing report for some sport, and then walking next to Usain Bolt. And I was embarrassed to be a human being because he was walking beside me and he was prancing and I was clopping along with my heavy boots. And the thin line between that story and today's show is you were working at that same IBC for CBC
Yeah.
at that point. What do you remember, really quickly before we get to hockey, what do you remember from the 2008 games specifically?
Well, for some reason, it worked out that I was able to take a hour or so off to go over to the Bird's Nest Stadium and watch him run the 100
Yeah,
meter
you did,
finals.
eh?
So I
I
was
didn't
in
get
the
there.
press load. It just so happened to work out, Jeff. As you know, at an Olympics, you're usually one-legged man in an ass-kicking contest. You're traveling all over the different venues.
It's true. It's
And
true.
so I sort of looked at the schedule. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. I can walk over and watch this incredible athlete. And
Yep.
so I did. I sat in the press loge. I was probably 20 rows high or something like that.
Yeah.
And the flash bulbs that went off when that gun went off, and
Oh,
what
bad.
was it, 80 or 90,000 people in the stadium that day?
Oh, yeah.
I still like when people ask me what moments in your career stand out that you don't think you'll ever forget. It's not when I covered per se. I was just there as a spectator, as a fan,
Yeah.
but absolutely, that's one of them. Yeah,
Yeah, see, for me it was because I didn't get to watch the 100 meter. I didn't make it to the Bird's Nest for that one, but I got to watch Phelps swim. That to me
nice.
was
Yeah.
that was Christmas morning. Okay,
Hey,
anyway,
all things considered, Jeff, what an Olympics to cover, huh? With Phelps and all those gold medals, and Bolt
and
setting a
the
world record like he did.
and an opening ceremony for the ages.
Oh, for sure, for sure.
Like one of the most gorgeous things. I don't know if you got to do any tourism things, but I mean, I did the Wall and I did Forbidden
Yeah,
City. I missed Terracotta Warriors. I should have
yeah.
stayed and extended for a few days, but I had to hustle
Mhm.
back home. Anyhow, so JT Miller returns. I want you to bracket that for 1 second because I want to go back to, and I haven't listened to today's show yet, but man, Blake was spitting bullets about that Tocchet presser.
Mhm.
I'm a big fan of your show, but hearing Blake go on like that was fantastic. How did that go over to the wider market?
Well, first of all, he's sitting a few feet to my right here, so I got to be careful what I
Okay.
say. And if you hear anyone chiming, Jeff, you'll know who to figure. Uh, so the question was from TSN's Farhan Lalji
Yep.
about Elias Pettersson picking it up in JT Miller's absence. And to be fair, Pettersson had found his game before Miller left the lineup, and good thing he did, because who knows where the Vancouver Canucks would have been had he not. So and honestly, it was like this was not a fastball. Like this was batting practice.
Yeah.
And Rick answered the question and went, "Oh my God, Petey, Petey, Petey! All you guys want to do is ask about Petey," and then went
Marsha,
on a bit
Marsha,
of
Marsha, Marsha.
yeah, no, exactly, and then went on a bit of a diatribe about when I was at TNT, and then he circled back,
Yep.
and he got friendlier, and his annoyance at he'd got it off his chest.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it was an interesting question because Rick has not lost his cool with us at all. Like I know
Yeah.
everybody hears about Vancouver, the big bad media market, and all that. Rick, in almost 2 years of coaching and messaging to this media and to this fan base, has had infinite patience. So much so, Jeff, that it's pretty clear that he relishes it. He enjoys it. He
Yeah.
loves talking hockey. And I think he loves the fact that he is surrounded by hockey minded people here in Vancouver, which, let's face it, is a little different than his two previous coaching stops.
Yep.
So, my point was, hey, if this is the first time in 2 years he's going to be a little annoyed at a question, let's just give him a pass.
Yeah.
Others saw a little bit deeper into it about like, why did he go off on a Patterson question? And look, um, Rick has been so honest with us at different times. that I think he has said a few things that haven't always translated and done well and landed well with
Yeah.
players in his role. And I think Elias Pettersson is one of those players. And I will bring you back to last year, post round 2 loss to Edmonton, where Elias sat at the dais in his final press session before heading off to Sweden for the summer and detailed a knee injury that was to blame or was a contributing reason why he
Yeah.
was so quiet in the second half in the second round of the playoffs as well. And when Tocchet, who had consistently said he's not hurt, was
Mm.
asked about that, he was quite dismissive and said, "Oh yeah, he's got knee tendonitis." So I think Tocchet is minding his P's and Q's with what he says about
Yeah.
Pettersson, understanding that he's more of a sensitive soul and that if he says the wrong thing, it's not going to land great with number 40.
So you mentioned knee injury there, and I always mispronounce it, so I'm going to ask you to pronounce it. Thatcher Demko's injury was, it
Yes,
starts with a P. I mangled it yesterday, and I continue to mangle it.
Popliteus.
Popliteus, for all of you undergrads at home in med
Pretty
school.
good Scrabble score too. Yeah.
Okay, so I mentioned this. I mentioned the conversation that you and Blake had yesterday with Pierre McGuire, and we sort of had our own little conversation about something you started on your podcast, which was the Vancouver Canucks contemplating life without Thatcher Demko, who
Right.
they are pretty close to extending. Like I'm like
Well, they haven't had to contemplate. They've lived it for
yeah.
26 games, right? They lived it for what wound up being uh, 12 postseason games
Hmm.
last year. And these aren't the only injuries in Thatcher Demko's career. So, at this stage of the game, you've got to consider him a, injury plagued, injury riddled, however you want to phrase it. Now, the good news is that he finished the game Tuesday and seemingly felt great afterwards. At least that's what he's told us, and that was not the case the last time we saw him play, which was game 1 of the
Yeah.
first round last year against Nashville, when he, had come back from injury late in the year and just wasn't able to go in game 2, and then wasn't able to go the rest of the postseason, and then wasn't able to go at the start of this season. So, we've talked about it when you've joined our show. He signed right at the death for low money, but I think you can argue that Kevin Lankinen has been the most valuable
Oh yeah.
unrestricted free agent signing of the
Oh yeah.
summer, which is
Oh
extraordinary, right? Like, where would the Canucks be without this guy tending goals? So, yeah, there's a big decision coming up because Demko is going into the final year of his contract next season, which means he's eligible for an extension in July. And I think what the Canucks management group has to see between now and the end of their season, whenever that may be, is can Thatcher Demko hold up to the workload? And I don't even think we're talking like a UC Saros Connor Hellebuck workload here, Jeff.
hmm.
Something short of that.
Just the regular, not the hyper inflated. You're going to play close to
Yeah,
Grant Fuhr numbers.
right.
Um,
57 games as opposed to
yeah.
63 in the by regular season context, because of course you're hoping to play a lot of them in the playoffs, and you would think he'd be the guy each and every night there.
So here's and this is a Tocchet question too.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder what is going to be left of Quinn Hughes by the end of the season if he
Right.
continues to play half the games. Every time I look up, Quinn Hughes is on the ice, and generally he has the puck. What is going to be left of Quinn Hughes playing 30 minutes a night?
He's so small. Blake and I talk about it all the time. The moment he walked into a conference room in Dallas when we were doing our show in advance of the draft, and he walked in and he looked like a child who had lost
Yeah.
his way, right? Like, who's this kid and what is he doing here? Oh, no, that's the kid from Michigan we got to interview. Um, you wonder playing 30 minutes a night whether he will just like evaporate into air. Like, there will be no physical matter there at some point. But I got to give him credit. Like, pound for pound, he is a tough son of a gun. And the workload, I think it's fair to say that the workload last year eventually wore him down a little bit. He
Yeah.
said when he reported to camp this year that he was not as good in the postseason as he would have liked. He said, I don't feel like I had a poor postseason, but I've got to do more. And and he made it his mission to be prepared for this season and to deal with the workload. Now, part of the other problem they have right now, Jeff, is that Philip Roenick, his usual partner, is out of the lineup and will be till the end of January at the earliest. And they have not only formed one of the better defense pairs in the National Hockey League over the year plus that they've been together, but the Vancouver Canucks are not particularly structured on defense to have defensemen move the puck. And so you're seeing higher minutes now for Hughes because when he's not on the ice, they don't have a lot of puck transportation from their zone to the other team's zone. And that's a significant problem. It was a significant problem Tuesday against St. Louis. And it's also a problem that I think is going to have to be addressed at a philosophical level with the organization. Rick Tocchet and Adam Foote, who runs the defense here as the assistant coach, they believe in redwoods. They went out to build a forest around Quinn Hughes this offseason. They knew they were going to lose Zadorov, that they didn't have the money to re-sign Zadorov, and it turned out Ian Cole got a pretty nice contract as well. Their response was signing Derek Forbert and Vincent Desharnais, who fit the profile. The problem is that when Hughes is not on the ice, or when Hughes and Roenick are not on the ice, and so far we've seen little appetite for splitting them up and balancing out pairs, they have to get through half the game with guys who aren't particularly great at moving the puck. And so I know Tocchet and Foote like that style of defenseman, and for the most part, especially at even strength, it was quite effective playing that big space-occupying defense against McDavid and Draisaitl, and of course Edmonton's their derby, right? Like Edmonton's who they got to get through. But I do think at some point that Jim Rutherford and Patrick Allvin are going to need to sit Tocchet and Foote down and say, okay, we understand your preference, but we just don't move the puck effectively enough with nothing but that profile of defenseman on the team beyond our top pair. So they are one of the many teams, Jeff, that are in the market for a top four defenseman, if not two, by the trade deadline. And I would have to think that Allvin puts foot down here and says, we need another puck mover, not another redwood.
JT Miller, closing question. JT Miller returns. What do you expect out of JT Miller tonight against the Florida Panthers? It's not as if he left because of a physical injury.
No, correct. Well, he himself this morning said he would anticipate some rust. He's missed 10 games here. I also think you're going to have a very friendly crowd there. They have come to Rogers Arena. The game here is they love all saying his name alongside PA announcer Al Murdoch. JT, like Miller. Yeah, exactly. So that's gone viral. And so we saw a very nice ovation for Thatcher Demko on Tuesday upon his return. I would suspect you're going to see the same sort of ovation for JT Miller from the crowd tonight. The question is, will that spur him on emotionally? Is he going to be too focused on just knocking off the rust and the details of the game and things that he hasn't practiced or hasn't put into practice over the last three to 4 weeks? He gave an interesting answer this morning when asked if he could still be the same emotional player that he is for the Vancouver Canucks, given what he's gone through. And he didn't want to answer it. He said that toes the line a little too close to what I've been through. So it's sort of hard to understand. It's sort of hard to predict what Miller is going to be like, given we have so little information in terms of what took him away from the Vancouver Canucks for the last 3 or 4 weeks. So that's the big question that I think is going to be on everyone's mind, not just tonight, but for the next little while, is this just the same JT Miller and it's plug and play, or is this a player and or a person who has fundamentally changed over the last month?
We shall see starting tonight. Always great. Matty, thanks so much for stopping by. Memories of Beijing. Nice to catch up with you again.
Thank you, sir.
If you enjoyed that video, and we certainly hope that you do, please hit the subscribe button right there here at Daily Faceoff. I will put this lineup up against any hockey lineup anywhere. It all gets underway at 9 o'clock Eastern with Morning Cup of Hockey. That is Johnny Lazarus. That is Colby Cohen. Then at noon, it's DFO Live. And then 3 o'clock Eastern, The Sheet. Get caught up on everything in hockey.